Hello and welcome to another episode of the Socially Numb podcast. I am your host, Richie Leahy. Last week, I mentioned that with the Christmas season coming up, we were not going to skip an episode. So today is the day after Christmas, December 26th. Now, I mentioned before that this was probably going to end up being a sports-heavy podcast, but it might not end up being because some things transpired over the past week that I'm probably going to go ahead and get off my chest here. And we'll go ahead and start with a recap of Christmas and the Christmas season. I mentioned that I would talk about some of the traditions that my family does. So normally on Christmas, we come from Polish descent. So everything we do is Christmas Eve. And so we have the family go out. We usually do some type of mass. And then we have a family gathering where most of my extended family comes in and we get together and do some, basically a big meal following in the normal Polish traditions that we set forth, that we start with like the very thin wafer bread that gets passed around with a bowl of honey. Everyone goes ahead and partakes in that. There's also a heavy fish dinner. I think most of the meal is fish or pierogies, which are always good and pretty big hit. My uncle makes some. He puts jalapenos in. Those are great. Always a big hit on the Christmas Eve feast. And then since all the family's in together, my grandmother, she has all the grandchildren get together and we do a name exchange. So we go ahead and exchange gifts. My grandma puts together stockings for everyone, even though we're all pretty old now. She still gets together and puts stockings together. And then any of the great-grandchildren, they do like their own gift exchange as well. So it's sort of a family-centered holiday, and it's pretty fun. Normally there's like some drinking involved afterwards. Once we exchange gifts, people go out. Sometimes people go out after. Depends on what the holiday is. And on Christmas Day then, it's pretty much just opening gifts and relaxing. So everything went pretty well. And then on Sunday, we have like another Christmas dinner. And that's typically more meat centered. Some type of like either lamb or ham. I think ham is more likely. Some fish. Some people do like some other seafood, like crab legs and things like that. But it's pretty good. Pretty good dining. And it's always enjoyable. And going on from that, we do other gifts from Santa or under the Christmas tree. We decorate a Christmas tree, and we've always done a real tree. I don't see the point in doing like a fake holiday. Let's go ahead and have some company manufacture a tree that you're going to put up for only a limited time of the year. That doesn't make sense to me. Go out, get a real life tree. It's supposed to bring the smells into your house, and you're not going to get that with a fake tree. There's no point in having a fake tree. That's some manufacturer, like I said, creating a tree, something that you're going to buy for no reason. Now, I understand if you can't go out and get a real tree, but it doesn't have to be a big, massive tree. You can go buy a little one, 2 or 3 feet tall, if you want to do that. But I don't see the point in having a fake tree. I despise that. I will never decorate a fake tree. Even if like I had allergies, I would try to find the cause behind the allergies to figure out why can't I be around nature, because that doesn't make sense. So we go ahead, put up a real tree. We go out, we make an event of that. That happens normally at the beginning of December, sometimes after Thanksgiving. We go out and cut down a real tree. So that's a big family day. And then we go out to eat afterwards. That's a typical tree decorating. And then we usually let it sit for a day, so you can put it up with no decorations. And then you have a celebration to decorate the tree. You can have people over, put up some lights, do some type of decorations, ornaments you put up. You can do homemade ornaments, and then you do Christmas cookies. And sometime that's around St. Nick's Day, which if you put out, St. Nick's Day is December 6th. So you can put out shoes on that day. And the night before, when St. Nick and Krampus comes and he takes all the bad children and beats them and teaches them a lesson. It's a little bit better than just getting a lump of coal. No one cares about getting a lump of coal. I don't know any kid that's ever gotten just a lump of coal. That's like something that they're not going to be afraid of, but they will be afraid of a big devilish monster coming to eat them. So that's something that you can use as a scary reward. Look that up. Or a deterrent, not a reward. No kid's going to be looking forward to Krampus coming. But they have Krampus like jingles chains to scare the children, and then that way they'll know if they've been naughty or not nice throughout the year. They'd either get the candy in their shoes or their stockings or whatever. And then afterwards, that kind of evolved. Santa himself is a basic marketing gimmick that I think Coke made up. Like, that's not a real guy. Saint Nick is a saint, I believe, Catholic, Orthodox, something in that vein, where he's a saint for like bringing gifts to the needy. That's where that came from. So that's the real holiday, is December 6th. I don't know who decided on December 25th, what significance that has, but that's when it is. So we celebrate Christmas Eve on the 24th. In between there, we don't do anything else. Some people put up like a countdown clock. We have like a calendar that counts down that you can do with like kids. When I was a kid, we used to do paper chains, which were like you would cut strips of paper and then glue them around themselves so that it would make like a chain. And then you would do like 25 days. So you'd make 25 rings glued on together. And then each night, whenever you went to bed, you would rip one off so that your chain would get smaller. And that's how you knew as it get really small, then you'd get most of your presents on Christmas morning. So that's where Christmas morning, our celebration comes down. Now, one thing that my mom started to do as I got a little bit older, before I moved out on my own, is she would make a casserole, which was a great feast. It was eggs, sausage, potatoes, cheese, maybe some other stuff. I don't know, but you put it together and you mix it sort of like a big omelet. And then you'd put it inside like a pan, a baking pan. I don't know, I don't do a lot of cooking. And then you put that in the oven. So that way, whenever you wake up in the morning, if there's gifts, you wake up first thing. As a kid, it was always earlier. You're waking up like at 6 a.m. As you get older, you're sleeping in. You really don't care about the gifts. You know they're going to be there when you wake up. It's not a surprise. So you stroll out of bed 9 or 10 o'clock, and that's considered early whenever you're in college. So you go ahead, go downstairs. Everyone's like, well, when we open gifts, we're going to open gifts first, and then we'll eat. So you go take the casserole, you throw it in the oven. That way the whole family can hang out, open the gifts. No one has to wait then to cook. Because if you don't have breakfast ready, someone has to either wake up earlier than everyone and start breakfast, then take a little break, open gifts, food gets cold. But with this, you take the casserole, you throw it in the oven, you let it get heated up, everyone opens their gifts, people exchange. If you do an exchange, I also do an exchange separate from our Grams with my siblings. We do that on Christmas Eve before we head to Grams. So we do like our own exchange. So then the Christmas Day gifts are the gifts from our parents or Santa, as you would say. So you go out there, exchange, open up all your gifts, see what you've gotten, and then you go ahead and get the casserole. And that's one of the best parts. Plus, then you can always throw other food on afterwards. Like, say, if you had some pancake mix, have that mixed up, put that in the fridge. All you have to do is shake that up. Go ahead, while you're digging into some casserole, throw a few pancakes on, grill up some bacon. That would be a good breakfast. But Christmas, you always want to have a nice breakfast. Because if your family does what my family did when I was growing up, right after you ate, you would go travel and see other people, which is one thing that I did not like. Because you're a kid, you get all of these presents, and once you get the presents, then you can't play with them. So you're out traveling about, going all over, going to see who knows where, going to see other people. You know that they just want to take presents, but you can't take the presents with you because you don't have that much room, that much time. You don't know what to bring. If you have like a new video game If it's not handheld, then you have to share a TV with someone. So it's not like a relaxing holiday. At least it wasn't in my family. Maybe because my family was quite large, but you didn't have the time to just relax. And as an adult, then it really kicks in, because then you realize like, hey, this is part of my vacation. Work might give you a few days off. That's vacation time. You want to spend that downtime to yourself. You just want to hang out. Maybe you want to go out, have a few drinks, go out to a bar, watch some football. There's bowl games on. If it's on a weekend, which I think this Sunday is, Sunday the 25th was football, and basketball is usually a big day over the holiday. So sometimes it lines up, sometimes it doesn't. I'm trying to think. Most of the time, football isn't moved to Christmas. So I think basketball, NBA does that. If you're into basketball, there might be some hockey. I'm trying to think. So you don't really watch much TV. Like I didn't watch much TV as we went around. So that's always the big thing. You get to catch up with some family members you don't normally get to see. But I mean, most of the time, the way I feel is you have family, but everyone is off usually on the weekends anyway. So people wanted to get together. Why wait until Christmas? So to me, it should be a relaxing time. Don't put yourself through the stress. You always hear horror stories like, oh, I have to go visit so-and-so family. It's going to be awful. Everyone's going to be fighting. You don't have to be there. You don't have to. Just relax. Do your own thing on Christmas. Don't buy into this marketing crap. Same with like Valentine's Day. You don't have to take anyone out. Yeah, sure, some lonely girls will be out at the bar. It'll be easy pickings. But on Christmas, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You can go out, hang out by yourself, relax. You don't have to visit anyone. Invite people over to your house. I know some people that do that. Like they want to get out of it, so they just tell everyone like straight up. Like, oh, Christmas is going to be my thing. Like if you come out to my house on the 26th, I'm going to have people over. But they do that because they don't care if people come over. And so like if you go over to their house, they might not have anything prepared. Or they'll tell you, oh, bring some food if you're coming over, because they don't want to have to do anything. You can go ahead and spend time getting your house all worked up. Get out all kind of presents. Get out all kind of food, items, drinks, whatever, decorations. Hey, I got to show off my house. Someone comes over to visit. You're like, oh, hey, you haven't been to my house ever. Well, it's Christmas. You're here for a good half hour, so we better show you the tour. So then you're walking around someone's house. You might get a beer. If you're driving, then you can't even do that. You have to sit there and listen to someone babble about their house, show you their presents. So like, here's what I got, because that's always the first thing people ask. Hey, what did you get for Christmas? And then you sit there and you have to listen to them tell you what they got, and you really don't care. So, some of that stuff's mind-numbing, and I'm going through that now. It's been pretty crazy, and I guess I'm a little bit bitter, not just about the Christmas thing. I generally enjoy Christmas, seeing people. I'm pretty laid back, though, so I don't get worked up over the little things like that. But whenever you get a present and you're looking forward to something and it doesn't work, it just ruins the whole Christmas. So, doing photography, I've been using Fuji cameras. I like the mirrorless system. If you're not into cameras, there's basically two types. You can have a full frame camera, which gives you extra pixels, kind of like the Mac Retina screen. They're shoving in the extra pixels to give you a little extra detail. Before, like if you'd buy a bigger screen, so like obviously if you have a 1080p, like 32-inch television or computer monitor, it's going to look better than if you have a standard definition, because there's there's more pixels. So the pixels are smaller, making your images look smoother. So a full frame goes ahead and takes a larger image. So like the difference is you have to look at the lens detail. Sometimes it's called a crop. So whenever you're using lenses, you have to multiply. It doesn't give you the same field of view whenever you take the picture. And then the crop sensor one has more noise, or less pixels to deal with. So you get more noise on the other end. And that's been getting better over time. So now Fuji, they're one of the ones that they're ahead of the mirrorless system. I think that's the only cameras they make. They don't make a full frame camera, which is nice because that means all of their lenses, everything's going to be manufactured directly to their system. It's called X series. And price-wise, they're kind of comparable to the other ones, maybe a little bit less, but it's still going to cost you a couple grand to get started if you want to dive into it, because you have to get some lenses, you have to get the body, which is over $1,000 itself, and then you're going to go ahead and dive right into the system. You're going to probably want to get some extra batteries and all the other things so that you're ready to rock in any scenario. So the difference on the tech side, now everything's been increasing. So Fuji's rolled out like a 24 megapixel camera. So they're able to squeeze in the extra pixels needed. Full frame can go a little bit higher than that if you want the extra detail, if you want the extra quality. But from whenever you're viewing it, unless you're printing it, you're really not going to be able to tell. I mean, you're going to see a little bit. The pictures might look sharper, but at this point, with everything going digital, you're not going to be able to get up past that many pixels on your screen. And to explain it in tech detail, now televisions are coming out in 4K. 4K definition, what that means is it's 2,160 pixels across, I believe, for your television. And that's the density for that. So with the new Fuji, it supports 4K video, which means that it now has their sensor, even though it's a crop sensor, can get enough pixels inside their photo for 4K video. So any picture you take is going to look great on a 4K monitor. And right now that's the max. Most televisions are going to get out there. Most computer screens are either going to be 4K or they're even going to be less than that, because you can still get a 720p television or you can get a 1080p. So you have a lot less pixel room to work with. So now, whenever you're getting into cameras, the difference from besides the technical aspect that you won't really be able to tell unless you're printing large prints, which the Fuji one still prints out well, is going to be the weight. So this is a trade-off. So a lot of professional photographers, before when you first went digital, you needed the full frame camera because the crop sensor ones were only 16 megapixels or less. So if you wanted to take high def photos for printing, you wanted to get into large prints, you wanted to do maybe digital billboards that had larger screens, you basically had to have a full frame camera. They're heavy to lug around. They have the same lenses, are kind of comparable. The more you pay, it's going to be comparable, but you're going to be able to see a difference the higher price range you go. And that's still the same it's going to be, where if you go ahead and invest in a full frame camera, you're going to have better pictures. You're also going to pay a good bit more. So where the crop sensor one comes in is you're going to have a lighter camera. And that's the kind of photography I like to do. You're out and about, more documentary style. And that's all I need. Being a digital guy, a programmer, web designer, most of the photos I take are viewed on a television screen, on a computer screen, computer monitor. So I don't need a full frame sensor. So I have a camera. I picked up the Fuji X-T1 a few years ago, and it works great for my needs. It's light, great reviews, tons of people use it, so it has great support. A lot of photographers out and about in the community, has great lenses. Fuji puts out great lenses. So what I've done is just had the body and the lens normally for what I do, and doing like outdoor style photos and things for people. I take photos of weddings and things like that, but I don't really need the extra lighting at this point. Now, for this Christmas, I had my sights set on getting a flash for the first time. And that's because you're going to go ahead and starting to do some family things. And when you're indoors, the lighting's not the best. For going out and about inside the city, even on cloudy days, going about at night, you can do slow release with the lens, and you can have shutter speeds slowed down to get your view. So you can get nice pictures. Just bring a tripod, go out and about. During the day, the bright sunlight, you can go ahead and get the photo that you want. Now, yeah, there might be some clouds and shadows. You can kind of lighten that up post-op if you want to do like Photoshop editing type deal. But you can go ahead and do your own. I have normally what I have is just a work light with bright LEDs. I fell in love with daylight bulbs. What daylight bulbs are is they produce very white light. So you throw a few daylight bulbs into like a projector, a work light projector, and they'll shoot out pretty far. Just put a white sheet over it. You can get white reflectors and work like that to help lighten up scenes if you're trying to do actual photography of a model or whatever. But for doing like small family things, starting to do like even headshots and portraits, you really don't want to have to bring a whole rig for that. So flashes work well. And up to this point, Fuji only had like these small little toy flashes to go with their camera. And I normally buy proprietary hardware, software, whenever I buy an item. Same with like phones. If you've dealt with Android phones and things, you know what I'm talking about. If you buy a non-proprietary charger, even with an iPhone, it's not going to work as well as if you paid the higher price for the real deal. And that's because these companies make small knockoffs. Yeah, you can go on eBay and get a cable or some accessory for like $5 for your phone, but it's not going to be as good as the original one that came with your phone. Go ahead, put it to the test. The charger is never the same. You're better off buying an OEM, the official manufactured accessory that comes with your phone, and that works for cameras as well. Typically. Now there are some other companies that try to make great items to go along, great accessories to go along with cameras, and that's where you're going to get into like things that you're going to need in your everyday life, like tripods. You're not going to be able to find a tripod by the company that makes the camera, and vice versa. But for the most part, you can get the whole system made by the manufacturer. So for photography, you have the body, and then you have the lens. So right now I just use all Fuji lenses with my X-T1. It's great. I haven't upgraded to the X-T2 yet. I would like to get into it just for the 4K video alone. I wouldn't get rid of my X-T1 either, because it's still nice to just be able to throw into a bag going on a hike. Like, hey, it's not weatherproof, but it's weather resistant enough where I've had it out at the ocean, water splashed up onto it, no big deal. The lenses are interchangeable between the X-T1 and the X-T2. So if I'm going to stick with proprietary, I know if I upgrade my system, I like Fuji enough that I'm probably just going to get the X-T2, and I'll shoot video with that. I don't shoot video a tons. What I would do is maybe I've been thinking about bringing a video element to the podcast, maybe doing interviews. That would pretty much be the only extent of my videography that I would do with my camera. I prefer photography. It's much easier, less intrusive to me than doing video. Some people do it. Video is definitely more time consuming if you're a photographer and you know what you're doing, because if you take good photos, you don't have to spend time doing post-op. So if you're a photographer and you're learning and you're like, hey, every time I take a photo, I have to spend hours fixing it up on the computer, then you're not taking the photo right. So spend some time and do that. Go out some days. If you're learning, this is a great tip for anyone who's getting into photography. Take your camera, turn off all the automatic stuff, set it to manual, and try to take a photo. And you can even document it, like bring a little notepad with you and say like, okay, this is how sunny it is outside, blah, blah, blah. Write down some details. Here's some photo shots. Take them. You can even turn off the raw filter if you're going to use that. Just use regular JPEG so that whenever you get that, you can't adjust it as much. If you shoot raw, you can go ahead and adjust the exposure and things if you're not a photographer. The raw file is basically the straight digital, think binary in computer terms. It's a straight binary that's just spit out. So then you have full ability to flex that. As a computer program, you're the compiler, you're the one throwing out the final image. If you shoot JPEG, you know once you make edits, it's gonna lose a little quality. Every time you save, it loses more and more quality. So that's what you want to do. Try to get one JPEG per shot. So like if you're going to go downtown, maybe there's a building. All right, I'll try to take a couple different settings on this building. Try to make your best guess. So always do your first one, then say, maybe I need the shutter speed a little bit faster, and try to get one great photo. And then that way you're not spending time post-oping. And then do that a couple times. So like make it a goal. So like, okay, I'm going to go downtown. I'm going to get a photo of this, this, and this. And if anything else pops up, I can go ahead and do that. Try to go to parks. Those are great ones. Just take random photos of things that you see in the park. Maybe a playground, maybe some benches, some guys playing basketball at a court or whatever. Just try to take a few photos and then get back and see what you have. And if you're able to do that after time, you got to get better at it. You got to practice. So go out and about a good bit. Then you're going to have better photos. You're going to be able to spend less time doing post-op. So that's normally what I do is I know the settings. I can give it a trial run. And that's a good thing with the digital camera is you can take a photo, look at it real quick to get your exposure settings right and things. And if you're outside, once you do that, you're pretty much set as a photographer because you know the settings. Most of them are going to turn out well as long as you know, like, okay, I have to make a slight adjustment if I'm coming out from underneath the shade, speed up the shutter or whatever. I always like to keep the ISO down to 200. Sometimes I have to boost it if it's a little dark out. And that's what I've been doing inside. So I boost the ISO a little bit, maybe the exposure, and I'm able to get good photos. But the darker it is inside, then you start to get a little bit of noise. So the photos come out good. They're good exactly how you want them, but you get the noise factor. And so with the flash, I was hoping I could eliminate that. Fuji has announced their own flagship flash for the camera. And I know that there's some downsides to it. It didn't have the radio, whatever features to act as a slave, to drive other ones. It was using optical. And there's some other downsides to it as well. But sticking with proprietary, I thought most of the time I've been using without a flash for all this time. I'm only going to really use it inside for portraits. So most of the time it's going to be on top of the camera. Yeah, it's a little bulky, but it would probably be able to work for what I needed it for. Now, compared to other flashes, this flash was a little bit expensive. $450 for a good proprietary flash. Most of the other units go like $200, $300. So it's almost double what you would need. So even if you were going to run it in a master slave configuration, you would need two. That's a $900 investment. For the same price at like a $200 one, I think it was like $270 for the Nissan, however you say their brand. But they had one that's like $270. You could get like 3 or 4 of those for the same price as getting 2 of the regular ones. So that's what you're looking at price-wise whenever I went and got this. So I did the order. Christmas, people want to get you stuff. You go ahead, make the order. And so then it arrives. And you're excited because, hey, this is a perfect time to test out some photos. You get a good item. There's a bunch of family around. You can get some photos inside. Use some flash. A couple other people in my family are photographers, so they normally have flash. No big deal. So I figured normally I just take mine, low light. If there's some noise, that's cool to me because I'm fine with that. I actually don't mind it too much. But like from a perspective, if you're taking pictures of someone's kid, you want their face to be sharp. It's not like an artsy photo. Maybe one as a family. If I have like just general ones of people opening presents, if they're a little noisy, I really wouldn't care too much. If it's going to be like some low light artsy type photos or documentary things, like if I'm doing something at night, noise actually adds to the photo. But in this case, if I'm going to get close-ups of like people hanging out or hugging each other on Christmas, I wanted good, sharp photos. I figured the flash would help me with that. So I believe the flash is XF 500 or X500. Actually, give me a second and we'll look that up just so that I make sure that I get that right, because that's the flash that you want to kind of look out for. So it's a brand new one. It's actually the Fuji EF X500, and this is the newest flash. And I've been watching it for a while. So I got a new lens back in like March, and I have to do like close-up portrait type stuff. And I've been on the lookout for a better flash because the first ones, like I said, the first Fuji ones that were already on the X-T1 when I got it were like small. I don't even know if it came with one. It might have. I think it came with a flip-up flash, which was pretty much useless. I don't even carry that with me. So I wanted to get one that I could actually use. And Fuji's ones that they had at the time that I got the camera weren't good at all. I mean, I guess they would have been okay. But compared to other ones, like off-brand ones, like the Nissan, I could go ahead and get better bang for the buck. Because like an extra $100 or $70 more, you can get more flash, more power, more capability, and more use out of it. So the EF X500 comes out, or gets announced, and it's supposed to be the big thing. For most of the time I'm going to use it on top of the camera. It seemed like it would work for what I needed, and it was also weather resistant, which the other flashes are not, to my knowledge. I could be wrong on that, but it is a hot shoe flash that you put on top. So I get excited. I'm like, hey, if I'm going to have this, basically the idea was if I ever upgraded the X-T2, I can still get some other flashes if I wanted, some off-brand ones to use professionally if I ever got more into portrait style photography. But here, for this, it would be great for a backup. Even if I only ever get one of these, then I can just keep it with the X-T1. I have a couple lenses on it. It's a good backup camera that I can just keep in my bag at all times whenever I'm out and about. I have a mini laptop I have. It's very lightweight gear that I carry if I'm walking around somewhere. And I can even do like public Wi-Fi. I can throw up a photo I take online through my mini laptop at any time. So it's very handy to have with me. I figured the flash might be good because you never know. Sometimes in the fall, and especially in the winter, low light situations, you get some clouds. So as you're walking around taking photos, you're not going to have that. It might be good to have the flash just for this scenario. So I went out, not sure what kind of batteries that they recommended. I didn't look into it. I knew that they needed 4 AA. I got 2 different brands, had them in my bag, ready to go. Get the flash because I knew I was getting it. Opened it up, went through, put the batteries right in, clicked the on button. Flash didn't power on. What a heartbreaker. And and I've been waiting for this flash for a while because it was announced in May and it got pushed back. Got pushed back to June. Then they were like, the X-T2 is going to come out. So the new camera comes out. They're like, oh, this flash is going to be launched with it. They're doing updates to it. Maybe they're doing some changes. Maybe they're going to roll out some of that radio stuff that people wanted. No, it gets pushed back then to November. And so I didn't even think it was going to be in. I saw that some stores had like 1 or 2 in stock. So finally, it was released sometime either in November or slightly after in December. So like I was surprised that someone told me like whenever I said that I was going to get it, like I was surprised that it was going to even come in. So there you go. I get the flash, doesn't power on. So I'm like, I wonder if like the battery configuration is messed up in this little photo because 2 had to be positive up, 2 had to be negative down or negative up. Yeah, because that would have been the same. So I have those. I try them in different configurations. I pop them out, throw in the other one, and I use Duracell and Energizer. So it wasn't like I just went and bought like 2 cheap brands of batteries. So I'm putting these in. They had the best batteries I could find because I figured if I'm going to put it in and start taking some photos, I really wanted to test the flash on Christmas to see how it was so that I had a good use case. I wanted good batteries for it. None of the batteries worked. The unit wouldn't turn on at all. I tried to like connect it to the camera, see like if it had to be connected there, tried different lights. I even opened the manual, read the manual, nothing. It was like you flick the button. So almost out, kind of bummed out at this point, disappointed. Like, all right, now I have to go through the hassle of returning this on Christmas. I'm not going to be able to get the photos that I wanted. So like the family is all around and you only have that one shot at it. So, I mean, I get the noisy photos anyway, so it's not a big deal. But it would have been nice to actually try out like an adult type present on Christmas. So I call Fuji and I'm like, I explain it like, hey, I got this as a gift. I want to take photos. There might be a Fuji shop around where I am. I know there are a couple. They have like some Christmas hours. Do you guys do like exchange, like straight up? Can I take it and get it exchanged? And the guy's like, basically no. So at this point, I'm just crushed. I tried to get through. I knew they had like authorized dealers. I thought maybe as an authorized dealer of a good camera system, I thought they might just swap it out for me. It's a new product. They probably have some in stock, but that they wouldn't even consider that was baffling to me. So I asked him. He kept asking me if I had generic batteries, which I didn't. And I honestly thought that the ad said that it was supposed to come with batteries, which always makes me suspicious. Whenever you order a product or get it online, and you know, like, hey, they shipped this out, but did someone have it before me? If the ad said that it's supposed to come with batteries and there are no batteries inside the box, did someone else open this, realize it was defective, send it back? They didn't have any more stock, so they just resend it back out. I mean, it had all the plastic around it, so you can't really be sure that it was brand new, but the box did look like it might have been opened before, so you never know. And the reason that they were pushing it back, I heard, was that it was overheating, probably because due to poor design. So that's never good. And the fact that it didn't even power on, and they weren't even willing to have an authorized dealer look at it for me. I mean, because I was going to take it out on my holiday, drive out to see them. It wasn't like I was asking them to overnight me a new one. They were like, yeah, we can give you a new one if you ship it directly to our warehouse. I'm like, how's that going to help me on Christmas? It's not going to help me. I mean, I wouldn't be able to even get it till like a week after. So whatever. So I just went ahead and got the details for where it was purchased through, set up the return, and I'm going to go ahead and go with a different brand. If Fuji doesn't want to invest into their own flash, oh well, not my problem. So they can go ahead and keep making great cameras, great lenses, but they should definitely outsource the flash. If it's not doing good, don't put it out. So I'll probably try the Nissan, see what that's like. Hopefully I'm pronouncing their brand right. I know it's not Nissan, so it has to be Nissan. But we'll see how that one works out. It's a little bit smaller too, so it's not as obtrusive, and it's actually probably going to fit better in my bag if I get that one. But I'm hoping that I have one out and about that I can do like some New Year stuff on. Still some visiting some family, so I'm hoping to get some good pictures this holiday, and we'll see what happens with it. But very disappointed. Might have made me come off sounding a little bit bitter about Christmas. It's good to get that off my chest. But you never know. You have something that you get, you're hoping that it works out, and it just doesn't. And for some of these brands that are trying to create loyalty in an ever-changing world where everyone's trying to get like the utmost, like trying to one-up another brand, put out better products, say, hey, come to our brand, you would think that they would allow you to just do a switch. I know I get emails from them still about like going in and having like a gear cleaning, gear switch event, but you're not going to drive, and I think it's only in New York in the United States, which living in North Carolina, it's a few hours drive. I'm not going to drive up there to have someone look at my camera. You would think that they would work with these authorized dealers to have someone on staff even to do like quick exchanges. I mean, they're going to get it sent out. They're probably going to resell it as refurbished whenever I send it in. Someone's going to look at it. Now I had to go through the hassle on my end, because you never know, trusting companies, you're mailing back an expensive item for a return. So I have to video myself boxing it up, putting the label on, and taking it to the post office so that they don't accuse me of like stealing anything, because who knows, you don't want to ever get into a fight with the return or anything. So trying to get that taken care of, just another headache on Christmas. You hope everything works out. You can never be too sure. It's a bummer. Hey, I might have got a lemon, but when you're seeing an item getting pushed back, I've been burnt on phones like that. I know people who probably got one of the Samsung phones that were catching fire, probably had the same feeling I felt like, wow, am I ever going to buy that brand again? No, not for flash. Cameras, yeah, cameras are working well. Lenses look great. Cameras, no. Or lenses or flashes, no. But same with like the phones. Anyone who buys a Samsung phone is ridiculous. There's no reason. And I had the same thing in college. Everyone had like HP laptops. They were like the thing. And everyone laptop I knew, their graphics card melted to the motherboard because they didn't have it designed well. So like you would buy a great gaming HP computer and it would melt. I've never bought an HP computer since. And I don't even think they like recalled them or anything. So you invest. I know my one friend did. He invested and had one, spent like good money on a gaming laptop, and it melted almost immediately, like a week into having it. So some brands, you can never recover from that. So kind of a bummer Christmas story, but that's it. That's how the Christmas went. For sports, I did win back-to-back championships in fantasy football. I'm actually on a 4-season streak. I only play one league per sport, and I've only been playing baseball and football. But starting in 2015, because I didn't win prior to that, I got on a roll. I won baseball in 2015 and then football. Then I won baseball in 2016 again, and again this year in football, 2016. So I've been back-to-back in both my football and baseball leagues. So it's been on quite a run. Some of it's luck. Some of it's starting to see a little bit of tendencies and not being afraid to make moves. So like the last week of the championship, I had a couple guys like on my team, benched Brandon Marshall, picked up his backup, Robbie Anderson from the Jets. I barely know the guys, but I just look for stats and try to see who's making moves. So you got to kind of look at the most recent stats, who's getting targets, who's getting catches, and things like that. So I'm trying to do like a more of a breakdown for fantasy sports and trying to put that on the site. I think that's a good thing. I think people want to know that. I see like other people who had similar thoughts. Most of the people that were willing to gamble are the other ones that pulled out wins in their leagues. So it's something that I'm going to be evaluating, looking at sports stats and trends. And I'm not saying that I'm the best at fantasy, but at least I've been winning. So it's a highly competitive league. It's not no 8-team league. We actually have 14 teams in football, 12 for baseball. So it's very tough. You have 14 teams in football. That cut from top tight end to next tight end and running back 2, I was constantly picking up new running backs, trying to find one that was consistently going to get me 10 points is what I was looking for. Just get me the average. If I can have all my guys average that, and then 1 or 2 guys have the capability of going boom, like David Johnson, the running back for the Cardinals. Johnson, he would boom almost every game. So everyone else was just even keeled. They get me the 10 points, and then David Johnson would bust out 20 something every week, and that would put me over the edge. So I did the same thing for baseball. I actually stacked up on closers, and I drafted pretty well because I got Chapman while he was suspended, and it worked out because as soon as he got back, then the Yankees traded Miller. I had both Yankees closers because I picked Miller up late too, because Chapman was suspended. So I'm drafting guys suspended, bench warmers. People don't even think they're going to play. They end up getting traded, and then I pick up some other ones. But that's normally my strategy, just very predatory. I just go out there and try to find guys that are hurt, that I know are going to come back and play, and pick them up early and stash them on the DL. And then I'm not afraid to cut dudes. In football, I was afraid to switch from Amari Cooper just because he had so much upside. And I really wanted to go ahead and pick up Tyler Lockett from the Seahawks, but I already had Doug Baldwin. So I couldn't justify, even though they were playing the Rams, because we had our championship week before Christmas. So I knew last week when I podcasted that I was probably going to win, but you never know to be sure until all the games are complete. Because of like the Tuesday or the Thursday game and then the Saturday game with Robbie Anderson, he scored a touchdown. And then early Sunday in the afternoon when I was podcasting, it looked like my team was poised to take the lead, but I wanted to make sure. So I didn't want to celebrate it last week. But this week, looking back, I had a couple guys that I knew were probably going to get the touches, at least enough, like catch-wise. Like I could see that Tyler Lockett was becoming a good check down for Russell Wilson, and we played in a PPR league, so every reception is a point. So even if he would check down to him 5 times, he gets 50 yards or so, that's 10 points. That's what I look for in a player. Just get me 10, and then I'll ride David Johnson. He'll go ahead and get me the 20. I think he got like 26 or something for the championship week, and then that will put me at about like 120 something. 130 points, I think is what I ended up with, because I believe my tight end Brait for the Tampa Bay Bucks, he got me almost 22. So as long as you have 1 or 2 guys going off, you're able to jump up. And we have 10 players on the roster. We do a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers and a flex, a tight end, and a defense and a kicker. And I think that's like the standard for the leagues. It might be an extra flex or take one away. But because we have so many teams, we don't do the junk. Like some leagues have like 2 quarterbacks and like 2 receivers or like 3 receivers and 3 running backs and then 2 flex. Like we have too many guys in the league to have that many positions. Because if you're at a quarterback position, everyone's quarterback average is about 12 points, and then you're able to pick up a top tier. Like the biggest draft coup I had this year was I picked up Matt Ryan. He had tons of points this year. I think he was like either first or second quarterback wise. He might have dropped at the end there. I think he still almost got me 20 if he didn't get me 20 in the championship. But we do an auction draft, and I got him late for $2. My starting quarterback that I actually drafted was Carson Palmer. So early in the season, I probably would have done better in the regular season than what I did if I would have started Ryan from the start. But Carson Palmer, when I benched him in week 3, I didn't really turn back any time and even think to switch him, because Matt Ryan's been pretty consistent. Even when Julio went down, I mean, they had the Niners matchup. There's no way I could have benched him. I think him and Carson had about the same points this week. I tried to trade different people, but no one would budge. I was trying to, and I think if someone would have accepted one of my trades, I was trying to get rid of some depth to get another high-scoring player, which would have brought my averages down from about 10 from other positions to maybe 8. And then if I had another top player, just in case, because I was afraid that David Johnson was either going to get hurt or drop off. And I figured if I traded some of my other guys, like my Doug Baldwin, Brandon Marshalls, for another top scorer like Odell Beckham, then maybe I would have like some type of insurance policy. But it worked out, got the win. We don't play the last 2 weeks of the season because it's Christmas. And who knows what's going to happen when they're benching players. Now you see in college football, we have players who are not even playing in their bowl games. They're going and just getting ready for the NFL, which I don't blame them. I mean, if I was in a bowl game that's meaningless, the big one was Christian McCaffrey. He's sitting this week out, and you know why? Because he's going to get ready for the NFL draft. He's playing in the Sun Bowl against UNC, the Tar Heels, who I don't even know how they are even in a bowl game, because they keep pushing back their not even alleged, it was pretty much acknowledged cheating scam of fake classes where they got academic probation. And it came out last week, I don't know what day, some day before Christmas, it came out that people were saying that they got another notice of allegations from the NCAA, which I don't even know how many that makes. They've got like 3 of them already, and it's supposed to be getting worse this time, where it brings football and basketball, men's basketball, back on the table, which I don't see how men's basketball wouldn't have been on it anyway, because they had, who was that one player, Rashard McCants, for the 2005 National Championship team. He was the one that came out and said that he had fake classes and now he can't get a job. And he had his transcripts. I think he showed his transcripts on ESPN or something like that. but that's coming back around. So pretty big. And then you have college players who don't even want to play in the bowl game. If they're not in the playoffs, the bowl games don't matter anymore. Everyone knew it was going to happen. That's why I don't think that they wanted a big playoff. And now they're seeing it. Penn State getting left out. Some other teams that were right there. You're putting Ohio State in. They're not a conference champion. Or even they didn't even participate in the Big Ten championship. But they get in, and that opens a whole can of worms. So now you have all these other teams that are saying like, hey, maybe I'll schedule light in the non-conference like Washington did. If all I have to do is beat my conference, it doesn't matter. Or like, hey, I can schedule some out-of-conference games that are pretty tough like Ohio State, and then drop a game or two in conference so that I don't have to play in the championship game. I can cruise the rest of the way and have my guys get healed up for the playoffs. And then you only have 4 teams in, so one conference is always left out. It was always going to be trouble. They should have just made it 8, tried to put in the conference champions, and then everyone who doesn't want conference champions in, because they say that the Big East, that is what the argument is. I see it all the time online. People say, oh, well, you can't have just conference championships in, or champions in, because what about the weak teams like from a conference like the Big East? Then they get in, they get embarrassed. Well, if you look at the records, the Big East did not have the lowest BCS record. That was the ACC. The ACC that keeps getting teams in the playoffs like Clemson. Clemson who went to the national championship game last year. But the ACC's winning percentage in the BCS Bowls was like 27%. That is awful. They barely won any games. And even whenever they were playing, they were losing to teams from other conferences that were much lower ranked. Like it was an embarrassment. So it wasn't the Big East that made the perception of these automatic qualifying champions. It was ACC too and the Big East after the Big East got raided by the ACC. So the ACC was taking teams from the Big East to try to bolster it because they couldn't win the games. And then even later, I believe the one year West Virginia crushed Clemson 77 to like 10 or something. I don't know. It was something ridiculous. But losing by 70 to 77, you gave up 77 points in a bowl game. That's unforgivable. No one can forget that. And they shouldn't forget that. But I think they should put conference championships in. Conference championships should mean something. So if you're a champion from your conference, you should get an automatic bid. Make it 8 teams. Let the Big 5 conferences get their champions in, 2 at large, and then let whoever's the highest ranked conference champion from the other conferences, the lower conferences, let them in and let them play the number 1 seed, because there's usually a pretty big gap between like the number 1 seed and the other ones. You don't want to give buys. If you try to do 6 teams with 2 buys, how do you decide which conferences get a bye? Like, should Ohio State get a bye this year? Or are you going to put Clemson at the bye? Or Clemson lost at home. Ohio State lost on the road. So who are going to decide who gets that second bye? So just skip that. Let Alabama be number 1. Most teams that are number 1 are there with authority, even though they might not deserve it because of their schedule. But they'll be there. Let them play a lower conference team. If that conference team can jump up like Western Michigan this year and hit Alabama in the mouth, you don't know. Who knows? Maybe they'd get the upset, and then that would mix things up. It would kind of be like the 16-1 games in a college basketball tournament. But make it happen. It needs to happen. And then there can't be any argument. If an at-large team gets left out, oh, well, you were an at-large team. All the conference committee or whoever has to say is, yeah, you lost. Maybe you should win your conference next year. Win the championship. Win a conference championship and you're in. So that's all they have to say to the other at-large teams that get left out. But that's what they should do. I don't know if they're going to do it. Fantasy football was good to me this year. Christmas so far was not. We'll see. Ordered another flash. So hopefully I can salvage it by the time this comes out. I know it's Christmas. So we'll see. It's been a rough week. So thank you for listening. You've been listening to Socially Numb with Richie Leahy.